Hello and welcome again to the Quiet Light Podcast. This is Pat Yates sitting in for Joe Valley. We have a fun conversation today, kind of interesting. When I look for podcasts, I'm starting to look for a lot of entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur out there, want to talk about great experiences, I'd love to hear from you. Vendor partners like today, we have CJAM Marketing, and Behdad Jamshidi is coming in to talk about his firm. I think it's really interesting. A lot of times when people go looking at marketing, they find a group that they like. They have a great conversation with someone, an intro, and they go with it. 3 or 4 months later, they look at the results and say, was this the right relationship? Behdad's business has a chance to really get through some of those problems. He actually will give you referrals into marketing firms that may be within your vertical. It might be that their product they've had success with in your kind of space before. I think sometimes it's kind of interesting because I've even gone more ad hoc to work with companies that I meet in marketing and just sort of build a relationship versus going in and vetting that relationship ahead of time, especially based on results. This really gives people an opportunity to find the people that they need, keep a relationship in between them. So if the marketing, say, isn't doing well, you have an opportunity to be able to change it or whatever it's going to be. This is kind of fascinating because a lot of people look at decisions they make within their business, especially solopreneurs, that they know everything. Sometimes it's good to be able to give up that thought and say, tell me what's been successful for you or partners you've worked with. This is exactly what they do. So I'm anxious to talk to him about it and see how I can help your marketing. So let's get right to it. Behdad, hello, and welcome to the Quiet Light Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Pat. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a great early morning. We're taping this around the Labor Day time. I know it's going to air a little bit later, but it's great to have you in today. Talk a little bit of marketing. It's something that I know that every entrepreneur that we have can use, no matter if they're marketing for a direct-to-consumer business or a B2B business. So I'm anxious to dive into this today. So what I'd love you to do is tell us about CJAM Marketing and yourself and maybe your background a little bit.
Absolutely. Around CJAM Marketing, I'm actually a marketing broker. So I'm not like your typical marketing agency that does all the work, but I'm the guy that basically talks to businesses, understand what businesses need, and then I match them with the right marketing partners. And so that's kind of what my business does. And a little bit about me and kind of maybe the 1-minute background on how I got into it. I started out as an engineer. So I used to work for a company very similar to Verizon, but up in Canada, it was called TELUS. I was working with businesses in the B2B space. So typically working with businesses anywhere from about 50 employees up to 1,000 employees, talking to C-level executives, IT, understanding what's going on in their business, and then basically building out a roadmap of like, how do you get from A to B to C? And typically it would touch technology and then all the other aspects of business. And so that's where a lot of like my business consulting, sales, leadership, and technology experience came from. But on the other side, I started getting into marketing. And how I got into that, I started basically doing websites, Google Ads, SEO for small businesses. I started hitting a point where I just didn't enjoy doing 80-hour websites on the weekend. So I started basically looking for partners to work with. And as I did that, I noticed that most marketing agencies didn't understand business and most business people didn't understand marketing. Massive gap in the middle. And when I put partners in the same meeting, I'd be like, well, first of all, why is the agency picking up that work? That's not what they do. And 2, they don't understand what the business is actually asking of them. So I thought, oh, there's a big gap here. What if I was able to bridge that gap? And so I spent the last 4.5 years talking to over 688 different marketing agencies and partners and vetting that list down to about 90 plus partners that I work with. And today, all I do is I talk to businesses, see what they need, and then I match them with the right marketing partners.
It's really amazing. I knew that. And I think that sometimes, though, your depth of understanding of marketing may need to be deeper than a lot of people's, because to put them with the right partners, sometimes you have to think outside the box in their business, correct? So tell me a little bit about when you're vetting people, what kind of businesses you look for and the complexities of the decision-making, because they may come in with an idea of what they think they need, but you may look at it and see something different, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So if we're talking about the business side, when a business comes into me, I'm always trying to talk about the high level of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. I think what a lot of mistakes that marketing agencies make is just go straight into, okay, what do you do for your business? Great. Okay, what are you doing for marketing? And they miss all the other stuff that's going on in the business, from, where they're trying to head, what kind of competitors they have. Do they have the operations in place to scale? What are their biggest drivers? What are their, best resources and assets? You need to understand the business as a whole initially before you can say, okay, it makes sense to go down this marketing path. Especially for what you guys do, some businesses want to get sold in the next 2 to 3 years. So are you going to invest in a really long-term brand strategy versus, maybe you just try to find the levers that you can do short-term to get the business to a place where you can sell it and let someone else take care of the brand. So it's all about really understanding what the goals of their business are, what they're doing currently today, and then what levers can be pulled and the appetite for the business owner, what way they want to go.
That's really incredible. So a lot of the listeners that we have that come into the Quiet Light podcast are either entrepreneurs that are building a business looking to exit, or buyers that are looking to buy businesses. So let's talk a little bit about the scope of services. So let's say that someone comes in and wants you to look at their e-commerce business. Tell us all the things that you can help them partner with. Is it just marketing, or is it logistics? Are there other things? Tell us about the top things you talk to your clients about to try to help them with.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, a lot of the stuff that I do is around digital marketing, but I do have partners in some different areas. So when we're talking digital marketing, I'm talking like brand, website, Google Ads, SEO, influencer marketing. Do you need copywriters? Like you literally name it from A to Z. Like I have partners that do that type of stuff. Video production and things along that sort. So anything that's around digital marketing, I basically have partners for. On the other part is I've met a lot of really cool people. I'm a connector at heart. So I met people that can help with logistics, finding 3PL partners, that kind of stuff. And then recently, fractional CMOs is a massive thing. But the last year and a half, I started noticing that most businesses don't have a proper marketing strategist inside the business, which always makes marketing fall flat and it doesn't allow a business to scale. So I've been inputting fractional CMOs into companies. And then I have partners that also help with some in-house resources as well. Especially when you're trying to hire at that C-level exec level. I have recruiters that I work with that help input in-house resources too. So that's basically the scope of services that we typically help with.
Really amazing. So let's talk a little bit about marketing for, say, an e-commerce company. That's kind of a low-hanging fruit of people that listen to the Quiet Light podcast or come in selling their companies. So from marketing, let's just talk about, say, SEO. Let's say someone had a background in SEO. They dealt with a company. Maybe it did work out. Maybe it didn't. How successful are you finding someone when someone comes as an initial client? I mean, do you go to someone and maybe that one works, or you move them on to another partner? How long does it take to find the right ones? And what are the things that matter in that decision to match the right partner?
Yeah, no, that's a great question as well. So, I mean, if we're going to use the e-commerce SEO example, I've helped many e-commerce companies find SEO partners to work with. And so in the beginning, it really comes down, let's say you haven't worked with a partner before, is really just assessing on the marketing agency side, do they actually have the talent and the skill set to run SEO well? And so a lot of SEO companies, they come in and say, yeah, we've been doing SEO for 2 or 3 years. I used to do it at a bigger company and now I'm doing it for myself and helping other businesses. You really want to find those agencies that have been around for a little bit longer. They have the systems, they have the processes in place, and that they are doing the right things for your business. And some of the best SEO agencies, you want to make sure that they're able to do the 3 different aspects of SEO, from technical to on-page to off-page. And a lot of SEO agencies will, when you go to them, they'll say, oh, well, we do technical and on-page, but we don't do the off-page stuff. And that's typically because the SEO agency hasn't built that team yet, or doesn't want to bring in that service because it just increases cost. But a proper SEO agency will be able to do all 3 of those things within their own house. And so you're always trying to just be aware of, do they have all the skills and the resources to help the business grow? Does that kind of help answer that question? Like you're looking for those?
No, it definitely does. I think what I'm trying to do is make the listeners understand how you can really help them diversify and get to. So when someone comes in on boards in an online business, you probably take a look at all of the facets. You look at how those pieces fit together from an SEO standpoint into social media. How do all these things tie together? Because I think one of the biggest time sucks in what people have to do for what you do is working with different companies for different parts. Is it possible that you're putting all this together that makes it logistically even quicker for people to implement the things they need in their business?
100%. Yeah. So that's exactly it. Because when you look at the agency landscape, I always say there's no one agency that can do everything. And if they say they can, you need to run. The number of times I've interviewed an agency and they'll throw up the beautiful PowerPoint slide that says, hey, we do, websites and Google Ads and SEO, and we do the social media. And I go, okay, listen, guys, I've done enough of these interviews. Tell me what you're actually good at. And all of a sudden it'll go from doing 9 things to, hey, we're really good at these 2 things. The other ones we're just kind of like, we're doing, but we're not that great, not better than average. Right. Yeah. So when you look at the agency or the marketing landscape like that, you start thinking, oh, wow. Okay. If a business like an e-commerce business needs a Google Ads partner, a Facebook partner, an SEO partner, an influencer marketing partner, that's typically going to probably be 2 or 3 different agencies you need to work with and bring together to make your strategy work. And so for a business to do that by themselves is pretty much impossible to be able to hit that right the first time. Right now, I have about an 80% match rate, right? Like at the end of the day, like I'm matching personalities to personalities, right? And so sometimes the personalities don't work, or the model of how people don't work. But if I'm right 80% of the time, that means if I'm giving you 3 or 4 different partners, like at least 2 out of the 3 is going to be good, or all 3 out of 3. And the more that I work with certain partners, I have way higher confidence in. Like for example, if an e-commerce business came to me and said, "Hey, I need a Google Ads, Facebook, and an SEO partner," I have those guys. I've worked with them. I know they're good. It's just now, are you at the stage in your e-commerce business to be able to afford that type of partner, right? Because most people also don't realize that there's like 5 different levels of marketing partners and agencies.
Wow.
And so they start. So say an e-commerce business is doing less than $3 million. They'll try to go for like the stage 4 agency where they're going to be paying retainers of like, $10,000 a month. The e-commerce business thinking, oh, if we pay this amount of money in 3 months, they should be able to pay their ROI back and more, and we should be in a much better place. But the reality of that is you need to be making probably $20 million, $30 million a year before you can use an agency of that level, right?
Gotcha.
You need to understand like at what stage your business is, what stage an agency is at, and how they can help you get from A to B, and then use another agency to get from B to C, and then move up that way.
That makes sense. So that actually brings me to another question. Let's say someone comes in and says, I've just started my business a few months ago and I really need to ramp up my marketing, but my budget is not to the level of some. I mean, are there levels of client that someone needs to be able to generate to be able to work with you, or do you help them get in the beginning to the right partners so they start everything off right?
Yeah. So, it really depends. There's kind of like a low threshold where like you need to be at least spending $2,000 to $3,000 a month on some sort of marketing for it to make sense to even start using agencies. Otherwise, like just use, Upwork or freelancers or whatever to kind of just like get some of your time back as you're growing this. But for me, like when I'm working with businesses, I'm trying to understand where they're at and go, okay, well, if you're not at the stage where you can really invest at marketing, you need to invest in the foundations, right? So maybe it's more one-time cost where like, okay, get your website to a point where it actually can convert. To make sure that you have email flows set up, because those are automated, right? Like you want to make sure your email flows are working really well so that if you're doing any top of funnel stuff to bring traffic in, at least they're coming to a website that can convert, which then goes into an email list, and that email list is automatically working. And that machine at the fundamental level works. Once you get to start scaling that and you like, okay, now we need to put more money in the top of the funnel to feed this machine more and more because we know it makes money. That's when you start kind of getting to that next level of marketing. And at that point, you're likely generating some sort of revenue in the 7-figure range, so that you can start investing in the next levels of growth.
That totally makes sense. I think that, so when you were talking a little bit earlier about sort of comparing marketing agencies, it's kind of interesting because when someone comes in and talks to you, they could be talking to 10 or 12 agencies in essence versus having a meeting with one. So sometimes I think, does it become really more specialized? Does a decision like, let's say that someone comes in and a marketing agency works better with, I don't know, shoes. Let's make that up. So is the vertical something that might help someone be able to be successful because you've had so many partners that work in so many diverse industries?
That's exactly it. Yeah. So if I'm talking to different businesses, let's even say, we're talking a lot about e-commerce, but even the B2B space, there's agencies that are specialized in different verticals. Right. So a lot of the time, I'm talking, say like e-commerce shoes, I'll go to my SEO agency because I don't have one SEO agency. I work with like 15 to 20 after I've talking to how many I've talked to, and they'll go, hey, yeah, we actually have done a bunch of different shoe brands. These are the ones that we worked on. We're totally fit for this. Right. Versus there's other agencies that be like, well, we're not really good in that space, but in the health, pet, wellness, like that stuff, we're really killer at. So in my like database, I basically just kind of tag like what people say they're really good at, what verticals they've worked at. And then when I get a customer coming in, I'm going, here's the people that you need to match with. So that's how that works.
So they're building a relationship with you. You're ultimately the vendor for this. So tell us a little bit about how you handle it post-engagement. Let's say that they work with a company and let's say 6 months in, it's not working out. Maybe as an example, technically that would probably reflect on you and the company a little bit. So how do you deal with issues? Let's say someone gets in and it's not exactly what they thought about it, or becomes more expensive. How do you deal with changes in this situation? That's one of the things I think about is if it goes wrong, it seems to go wrong a lot of ways. Maybe I'm overanalyzing that part of it.
Yeah. I haven't had like any crazy, terrible scenarios. So in terms of like how I follow up, so every 2 or 3 months, I'm checking in with my customers. I'm going, hey, how are things going? What is this agency doing well? What could they be doing better? And is there anything that I should know that I don't know? And so always having a communication with my customers is really important to me. My door is always open. I had times which I actually had customers go, hey, like we use these guys. They did well, but like we're looking for someone else. Do you have any other recommendations? And that's like a massive testament to me, because like I get really excited when my customers come back to me and ask me for another referral, because they know that I'm like super transparent up front. So in the email that I send over, I say, hey, I've worked with this company this many times. These guys I haven't worked with, but here's what I've done on my deep dive and why I think they're good. Right. So ultimately, I work very similar to like an HR recruiter, where just, similar to an HR recruiter, but even deeper, where I'll talk to people. I'll do my best to make sure that I'm getting rid of a lot of the red flags for you. Because out of every like 100 agencies or partners that I meet, I only allow 15 into my network. That's typically the average, right? So there's about 85% that I say, sorry, you're not at the stage where I would want to send you any customers. So just imagine being a business and you needing to meet, 15 different companies to hire one. How many people are doing that? Yeah. Probably very close to zero. And then when you start thinking about, you need 2 or 3 partners for the thing that you're doing, now that 15 becomes, you need to talk to 45 different people, and no one's doing that.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think there's value. Not only is it a sort of a, best way to put it, maybe a time suck looking around at 15 to 20 different companies. If you can, compartmentalize that and also get referrals of someone that's good, that's great. So tell me how someone gets started with CJAM Marketing, and what do you do? I know you can book a free consultation. People can think about the ideas. Tell us a little bit about how they onboard and how the process works.
Yeah, I mean, my process is super simple. Like, as you see on my website, it's literally just book a call with me and let's have a discovery session. I used to do these discovery sessions for larger companies, anywhere between like the 50 and 1,000 range. So I basically take that same concept of like, okay, let's talk about your business, see where you're at. And then based on that, I go, here's the way that I would move forward with your marketing. And whether that's like, hey, we need a fractional CMO to come build a strategy, and then we're bringing the agencies in, or, hey, you have the right in-house resources, we just need to supplement with this. So I kind of help with that kind of like thought process. And once I get the buy-in, I have a small engagement fee that I charge up front for my marketing broker engagement. And then I work very similar to like a recruiter, where if I successfully match you with an agency, I get paid a successful finder's fee. And then the front end fees for me are very low, because I also get referral fees from marketing agencies. They have their whole model built out. So using me is actually way cheaper than using a fractional CMO or anyone else to kind of help you find agencies. And then from there, I come back and I go, well, here's what you asked for. You wanted a fractional CMO. Here's the SEO person, the Google person, and here's 2 or 3 options for each with descriptions. And who would you like to meet? And my customers typically will come back and say, hey, B, I'd like to meet with this person, this person. Can you schedule this meeting with this person and this person, 2 weeks down the road? They have the conversations, and then they choose to work with people if they want to. And if they don't, that's totally fine as well. But at least they know they've got kind of like the cream of the crop in terms of what I've found in the marketing world over the last 5 years.
That's really great. I mean, I think that people underestimate how difficult it is to be able to, especially like, you can have the greatest initial meeting with a marketing company or any supplier, and then 2 weeks later, the expectations kick in and it's a little bit different. So sometimes it's really good to have that other voice. So again, tell us a little bit more about how, clients end up coming in and changing up everything they do. Do you find that most people come in and just concentrate on one area and then they expand with you? Or is there an area that you think is the hottest right now that people need to understand that you guys can really propel their business?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the business. And so it depends on where the business stage is at, what kind of marketing budget they have. I have marketing. I have businesses that come in and they have the marketing budget, right? So they're like, hey, we need to get these 4 things going. Whether it's SEO, Google Ads, Facebook, they're already running it. They just need to run it at a higher level. And so I help them find better partners for where they're currently at. And most of my partners will do audits, right? So you can get those free audits up front from agencies that I think are very, very high. Sometimes there's partners where we're just like, well, we're just looking for a really solid Google Ads guy, because that's our main channel right now. It's working really well. And so in those scenarios, I'll just give them one partner to work with. Like for example, we had a few different successful wins, but if a customer comes in and says they're on the B2B side in the service space, I have a Google Ads guy that I've worked with 9 customers, and he absolutely kills it. He helped one of my customers basically sell their business 18 months later, and he increased their profits from 20K a month on the Google Ads and the Bing to 400,000 in just 1 year. And so you can imagine the multiple that customer had got after selling. So there are like those types of scenarios where I'm like, I have partners that have done this stuff before. I have background. Like, let me just save you so much time and effort. Just hire this dude. And just doing that can put the business so much further ahead than trying to figure it out yourself.
It's interesting you mentioned that because it is correct. As an M&A agency, Quite Light sees a lot of people that come in, and sometimes the marketing spend may be a little bit higher, but the efficiencies of those, if it adds money to the bottom line to your SDE, then you're going to get a multiple that's very high from that. It's really an incredible thing. So tell us a little bit about the process with the vendors. Once someone comes on and onboards, let's say they come to you and then you give them off to XYZ agency. How does the communication work? Do you stay involved in it? Do you help the client, or is it just turned over to the agency and then they report back to you? How does it work post-transaction?
Yeah. So post-transaction, typically I'm not in the middle, right? Like, so I build trust with my businesses and my customers, and I kind of stay in parallel to it. And so I go, hey, if you ever want to have conversations with me, or if there's anything that's coming up, reach out to me and I'm happy to chat. But ultimately, I don't want to sit in between the relationship between the agency and the business that are working together. So once I pass off that relationship and they end up working together, I want them to become naturally and organic. The only times I will ever basically get involved is if I follow up and say, hey, can you kind of reach out to them and kind of tell them this? Or typically businesses will say, hey, B, they're really, really good at this. I wish they were a little bit better at this. And then they'll just talk to the vendor themselves. And so I'm just getting like inside info of like, how is the relationship working with, and it makes me better at matching continuously in the future. My business just keeps getting better and better the more I match. And then on the agency side, I think you asked a little bit on how I vet the marketing partners. Yeah. So typically I will have a conversation with any agency and have those conversations. And usually the agencies that I get are deep within my network, where it's like my good partners are referring other good partners to me. I'll always have a 30-minute conversation with them. And on that high level conversation, it's really, I'm just trying to understand what their values are, what their goals are for their agency. Are they actually good? And then I request a ton of information after that first initial meeting of like, okay, well, you told me you can do this, this, and this, whether it's websites or branding or Google Ads, or I'm like, walk me through that. Send me emails and videos and stuff and show me that you actually know what you're doing. So after I review all that and I go, okay, well, it all looks good. Now I do a 1-hour deep dive into the agency and I go through like a 30, 40 plus questions, basically understand the agency inside and out, from like, what their goals are, where they're headed, what their team is, how their team is structured and potted out. Are there certain specialties within that team that I need to be aware of, that if that person leaves, you lose an entire, service line? All those like deep questions that most businesses won't ask, I'll do. And then even after that, to get into my partner network, I charge them money to get in. So I have like multiple levels of filters to make sure that at least if I've never used an agency before, I've done my due diligence at the highest level to say, hey, based on everything I've seen, I haven't seen that red flags. These guys seem to know what they're doing in these areas, and here's their specialties. And agencies are typically a lot more transparent with me, because if they know they lie to me or they're not transparent with me, they just paid to get into my network. And if they fail one of my customers, they get to my blacklist. And so it's not in their best interest to do so versus just working with a customer, taking them on, saying that they can do stuff. If it fails, the customer likely might write a bad review or just leave, right? And so they don't get that same hit to their brand.
Are there certain areas of say an e-commerce business you don't cover? Like, some people may say, well, I'd like my email marketing to tie into my social, to tie into everything else that I do. Or can they find this as a one-stop shop that can do basically everything you need within marketing or company? Yeah.
So the only area of service that I don't cover right now is affiliate marketing. So that's the one part I don't. But if someone's saying, hey, I need email, that I need that tied into my social media and all that different kind of stuff, the question comes down to, is there an agency that can actually do those 2 or 3 things together, right? Like some agencies do 2 to 3 things well. Can you find an agency that does email, social media, and that becomes the question. And if not, it goes, okay, well, here I have an agency that does social media really well and someone that does email really well. Do you have someone internally, like a marketing director or someone running marketing, to help bridge that gap? And so you get the best of both partners doing what they do really, really well, and then an integrator within the company to do it. A lot of the times when I'm working with businesses, let's say e-com businesses or other type of businesses in the $3 to kind of $20 million range, because you're almost getting to that point where you're getting to that next level of scale, right? Like you got to get operations in place, processes in place so that you can scale. In those scenarios, usually if they don't have someone strategic on the marketing department inside, I'll actually recommend, hey, let's get a fractional CMO into the company, let them build a strategy, let them build a plan, and then we'll feed that fractional CMO the agencies that you need to build out that plan. And the cool part about a lot of it is you can use that fractional CMO to hire a marketing director underneath them to basically run and execute the plan. So you're not paying the high cost of the fractional CMO over time. And so that's typically how I'll structure it, and just kind of have conversations with my customers to go, which route do you want to take? Do you want the more strategic route where you have a plan and I can input those agencies? Or would you like hey, I'm only trying to get like 1 or 2 channels going, and Google and Facebook's and what we're focusing on. B, can you just get me agencies for that? So it's really just having that conversation with my customers and understanding where they're at, what their appetite for marketing is, and kind of where they want to go. And then just saying, here's the 2 different ways or 3 different ways we can do this. Which one would you like me to go out and basically bring you a team to do?
That's actually amazing. I mean, again, I think it's really kind of wild that back in the day, everyone struggled to find partners. They wouldn't even share information. But, with you guys, you have an opportunity to come in start to finish and be able to take their marketing to the right partners without having to go through that pain of actually going through the bad situations. Like, that's one of the biggest pain points of building a business. You go out and make all these mistakes and you screw up your marketing, then you figure out better ways to do it. Sometimes the good thing, sometimes the bad thing. But I would assume with you guys, you can get a perfect start right away with the right partners that have been in your industry. Is that pretty much how you operate?
Yeah, I would say that. And, I'm a transparent guy, and I like running my business super transparently. Like, my relationships don't work 100% of the time, but they're going to work way better than you doing it by yourself. Even just having a conversation with me, for example, like I had a customer I talked to about a month ago, and they were telling me they were spending $8,000 on SEO a month. And then the retainer for like Google ads was around $4,000 a month. And I just said, okay, well, I just asked them very simple questions. What are they doing on the SEO? What are you getting for it? What kind of business did this guy have before he built his SEO company? And after literally a 30-minute call, 2 days later, he goes, hey, I fired my SEO guy and I fired my Google ads guy because I realized they were overcharging. They weren't giving me enough stuff after kind of looking at a lot of it. Can you help me find the next piece or the next partners? And so just even sometimes a conversation of like, hey, am I getting the right value for what I'm spending? Is there someone out there that's better? And then I could tell you, because I've talked to over 688 of them, of what the pricing should look like for what you're getting so that you're not getting hosed and spending more money than you should at the stage that you're at in your business.
Yeah. And I would imagine that especially in pricing and things like that, working with vendors with a lot of volume is going to help the client save a little bit of money, maybe. And at worst case scenario, they would be able to sort of go through it. So let's also ask one question. So let's say that something's going poorly, as we talked about with a vendor. Are they able to come to you and maybe you get involved in that situation, either help mitigate it to make it better or find a way to move on to another partner? Does that happen very often? And if so, is that a difficult thing to keep the relationship good with both you and the vendor itself? I mean, that seems like it'd be a difficult situation.
No, so I actually have somewhere in my contract, I thought about this clause way pre-hand where it's like, hey, look, if I have a customer that's not happy and they don't want to tell you that they're not happy, I have the ability to step in and find another partner that will match better. It hasn't happened that many times, but when it has happened, customers will come to me and say, hey, this agency hasn't been able to do this and this, or I don't know if they're actually doing good work. And so there was actually one situation where I actually brought in 2 other partners to audit one agency to see how they were doing their work. And one of the other agencies kind of like spotted a bunch of things where they're like, this could be done better, that could be done better. Because for me, I want my customers to be happy. And I expect my agencies on my side to be doing the best work possible. And if they're not doing that, I want to know. And so there are situations where I get involved and I'm happy to find another partner, because at the end of the day, I want the business to be happy. And if I'm allowed to, if the business allows me to, I'm always happy to talk to the agency and go, what's going on, right? It adds another piece of fire underneath because they know I'm a referral partner, and having me not happy with them ends up adding a little bit more fuel to the flame, especially when I'm as well connected in the marketing world. It doesn't look very good if you're not.
You're kind of like having a fractional CMO. You come in and you help them understand what they need, where they can go, and what's been successful, correct?
That's exactly it. I just don't want to be one.
No, I completely understand that. Well, this has been great. Is there anything else that you'd like the listeners to know about CJAM Marketing? And also tell them how they can get in touch with you.
Of course. If you want to get in touch with me, there's kind of 2 main ways. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so look up Behdad Jamshidi. I'm on there quite a bit, so if you ever want to message me, you can do it there. And also on my website, so www.cjammarketing.com. You can book a discovery meeting or even email me from there. I'm always happy to chat. And if you go to my website at the bottom, there's an agency resource, a resource section down there with questions. For example, 10 questions to ask your agencies, and also 5 things to watch out for when working with agencies. So if you want to grab those, they're in the bottom footer on my website, or www.cjammarketing.com/resources.
We will definitely have all these links up for the podcast as well as into your LinkedIn. And I think that it's been a great conversation. There's so much that can be learned, getting into this. And Behdad, I just really appreciate you coming on the Quiet Light podcast today. It's been an awesome conversation. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Pat. It's been a pleasure.